we're coming up to the last session now, which is going to be talking about the joys and the challenges to an enterprise team or to enterprise educators like yourselves. I have to confess that when we started putting the slides together, I actually just put the challenges to an enterprise team, and my colleague said, no, you can't just say it's really hard. You've got to also say that it's really rewarding. And the thing is, of course, it is. I mean, probably, you know, your own experience of supporting startups, it's so rewarding seeing the transformation of these young people, and not so young people sometimes. You know, we have a lot of mature students also on enterprise placement year, but seeing that development is fantastic for us. Someone else mentioned the growth in confidence and self-belief, which is just incredible over the course of a 10-month period. It's fantastic to see. So I really wanted to just acknowledge that there are many joys. So that being said, there are also some challenges. And so what we wanted to do was perhaps just present to you 3 challenges or 3 umbrella challenges that we have found here at the University of Huddersfield, and then ask if you'd like to sort of chat and work with the other people on your tables, either to look at those challenges and see if you can come up with any solutions that we haven't thought of, or perhaps just use the time to discuss other challenges that you might face if you were trying to develop such a placement opportunity in your university, if indeed you don't already have one. So that's the idea of this last and final session. And then we'll do a final offer of questions and wrap up the day, if that's okay. So we're going to have 3 challenges, and first up is my colleague Nicola, who you've not met so far, other than at reception. Nicola Walker, who's our enterprise coordinator, and her #1 challenge, and Nicola does a lot of dealing with the students, getting in touch and paperwork and processing documents and this sort of thing. Her #1 challenge is communication.
Thanks,
Nicola.
Phil. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I think Phil's just sort of mentioned what my biggest sort of challenge is. So as part of my role, I look after the sort of admin support to the enterprise team and day-to-day running of the Duke of York New Entrepreneur Centre. So with the enterprise placement year students, because they're following a specific programme which has sort of compulsory elements and certain deadlines and tasks that they have to do, obviously we do have to communicate with them, and one of the biggest things we find is they don't reply to emails. What we sort of say to them and encourage them to do during the welcome week at the beginning of the placement year, we do stress to them, set up an individual email that's relevant to your business or that you're just going to use for this placement year. But 9 times out of 10, they don't do that, or if they do, they still don't check emails. They might, obviously, we all know what it's like these days. We've got mobile phones, they've got instant access to emails, so something might pop up. So they might sort of glance at it, but then forget to reply. So because of that, we're not getting responses from them to, important things, so they're missing deadlines. We send out a lot of information about sort of enterprise competitions or events that might be relevant to them in the business, and a lot of them aren't sort of taking up those opportunities just because they're not communicating with us and they're not sort of taking that time out to manage that sort of process themselves. We have had sort of complaints from the placement students that we send too many emails, but then when we've gone back to them and said, well, can you give us examples of that, they haven't been able to do that. So again, it's just finding excuses and things like that. And we just find it really frustrating because obviously I don't want to be bombarding people with emails, but and obviously if people are working in the centre, you can just go over and speak to them. We've got notice boards, we've got other ways of communicating with them. But we still have that problem of getting them to sort of respond and come back to us and acknowledge things that we've sent out, make sure that they've got things in the diaries. So like I say, we just find it quite frustrating really, and we've tried lots of different things. So if anybody's got, like I said, when we do the discussion, the group work at the end, just if anyone's got any ideas of anything else we can try. Because obviously, leading on to what my colleague Catherine's going to talk about in a minute with positioning, obviously if we were an employer, they'd be expected to answer emails and respond properly, but because we're not, it's sort of getting that balance of how to do that, which does lead me on to passing over to Catherine to talk about positioning.
Positioning is a really interesting issue for us because, as Nicola said, we're not their employer. And if you look at it holistically, a young person goes to primary school, then there's a big transition program between primary and secondary to help them through, and then they go from secondary to university. And generally, obviously, we have mature students and postgraduate students, but generally they've come through that process. And what they've been used to is a teacher or a lecturer and a certain sort of behaviour. If they were going into a traditional placement, they would have to very, very quickly learn the difference between being a student and being an employee. But as part of that, they would have very strict guidelines about what they were supposed to do. For example, that they were supposed to come to work on time, that they might wear appropriate clothing, that they might not swear in the office, that they might actually do the work that they are hopefully being paid to do. So that's a very clear relationship, and they kind of understand that that's the education bit and here's the work bit. The big challenge we find is that when you start talking about self-employment, one of the things when we ask them why they're interested in exploring this, you've all heard it. It's, oh, I want to be my own boss. I want to be the boss. I want to decide when I come to work, what I do, when to do it. And I always say to them, actually, that is completely impossible, because there's always a boss somewhere along the line. And if you're working for yourself, instead of having maybe one boss, you've probably got many, because your clients can be much more demanding and difficult, in my experience, than any one boss. So exactly from what Nicola said, how do we best position ourselves to get across this critical friend kind of place that we are, where we are still part of the university, but we're not their lecturers, and they have things that are compulsory as part of the programme, but we haven't got a big stick to hit them over the head with. We can't kind of sack them. We can have lots of conversations with them and maybe think that this isn't the right way forward for them, but obviously that's the last resort. So the positioning thing is, how do we span that gap between everything they've learned and they've had all that transition support and everything, everybody understands it. You expect to go into the workplace. This is kind of jumping off a cliff to some of them, and the way they perceive us and our roles very much depends on their own subjectivity. Is that fair to say, Louisa?
Yes.
So they will we deliberately call our events. We call our meetings, because we're trying to get that business vocabulary across. But they'll say, oh, I can't make the lecture tonight. I'm really sorry. So it's definitely following on from the communication. How do we engage them? And this is not everybody, but some of them just get it and up and running straight away. But on the whole, there is a transition that they have to make, which is quite complex, I think. So, answers on a postcard?
And so my challenge is transition, which also leads on nicely. So for enterprise placement year, what we're asking people to do is to actually change from being a student to a business owner in a fixed period of time, which is actually quite unnatural. Because if you think about it, for many people who are experiencing business startup, it will be an organic process, and they may be doing it whilst being employed as well, or they may be doing it in their own time, like on our enterprise support program. But for enterprise placement year, they come in on the 1st of August, and we need them to experience an awful lot of things and to prove that they've experienced these things in 10 months. So actually, this has come from a poster which I did a few years ago for IEC. So I know it's very stereotypical, but how do we get from sort of student mode to sort of more professional and business mode? But how do we do that, and how do we support them to make that transition in what is actually quite a short time frame? And so that's another one of the big challenges that we feel that we face as well. And the thing is, with all of these 3 issues that we've flagged to you, some groups of people that we support just get it. And when they do, the results are absolutely fantastic. So our challenge is not for those. Our challenge is, how do we help those that don't naturally adapt and fit it? What can we do differently to help those people transition, which covers positioning and which covers communication? So when we met as a team and thought, what do we want to set you? Because we've done all the work so far. What can we set you to help us with? These were our 3 points, but I think Catherine's now just going to say something about how we're going to progress from that.
Yeah, so this is also an opportunity for you to reflect now. You've heard 3 challenges that the team have got around communication, positioning and transition, and you are more than welcome in a pair or on your tables to take one of those challenges and think about how you might address that. But you might be sat there thinking about a challenge for your particular context or situation, and you're more than welcome to work on that too, because obviously you might be at different stages. You might already have an enterprise placement year, you might be thinking about starting an enterprise placement year, so these challenges might not be relevant to you, and more importantly might not be the best use of the next kind of 20-25 minutes for you. But this is a chance, you know, you've taken in a lot of information today, this is a chance for you to kind of integrate some of that by thinking on how you would address a challenge, either one presented by the enterprise team here or one that's really relevant to you and your context or situation. Claudia's already started using the flip chart, so this is a great demonstration over here of how to use the resources. It would be great, in our kind of imaginations, we're hoping that maybe in 20 minutes we can get a bit of feedback about a challenge that you've looked at and how you think that you would address it, whether it's one of ours or one of your own. And you've got some flip charts and pens and each other as resources, or put your hands up if you want to chat either.